There is zero good faith on the part of Democrats on the border. If they wanted to enforce the border, if Trump was an existential threat and they wanted to take an issue away from him, they would enforce the border. They don't give a rip because open borders is their policy, period, end of story. And any Republican trying to tell the American people anything different should be defeated and primaried. And I'm going to personally make sure that I work toward that.
Fox News' Laura Ingraham once again is on the warpath, urging Republican lawmakers to avoid striking any kind of deal with Democrats in order to fix our broken immigration system. And if it wasn't already clear in that clip, well, she's been even more open about how she sees this as a political issue that could really help Republicans in the upcoming election, should they take her advice and serve as obstructionists to any policy or legislation that could actually solve the very problem that she's crying about on her show almost on a nightly basis, which is, it just blows my mind. So anyway, there's a big problem with that strategy because some congressional Republicans are starting to get pretty antsy about their lack of accomplishments in this term. We're gonna get to that momentarily, but first, a little more on immigration. Because as we mentioned, Ingraham has already explained what she's up to and why she wants Republicans to avoid passing any immigration reform before the elections. Let's take a look.
Think of it this way. Why on earth, after the Democrats did everything in their power to flood America with millions of indigents from across the globe, would Republicans ever give Biden an opportunity to take a victory lap and then pretend that he's done anything to solve this problem?
Well, Biden can't unilaterally reform immigration. You need Congress to pass legislation. That's how our government works. System of checks and balances, Congress passes legislation, the executive branch can veto it, but Biden clearly wants a solution to our broken immigration system. It's just that we're not gonna get it if you have conservative talk show hosts preventing any real discussion, debate, or deal being made between the two parties in regard to legislation. And over the weekend, Republican Senator Kevin Cramer explained to CNN that Trump is more interested in beating Biden than actually doing something about immigration.
It has taken months for senators to near a deal on an immigration overhaul aimed at stemming the surge of migrants at the southern border. But it only took one Trump social media post to completely upend the delicate compromise. He called on the GOP to reject a deal that doesn't have, quote, everything. And he pressured Speaker Mike Johnson to only accept a, quote, perfect deal.
It makes it harder because there are a lot of people that, that take their lead from, directly from him. I do think, he's in a campaign. He's the presumptive nominee as far as I'm concerned. His opponent will be the current president, and so he's probably, I haven't talked to him about, but he's probably thinking about, Joe Biden victories. If Joe Biden suddenly got religion and supported a border deal that actually reduced the flow of illegal immigration, it would be good for him politically.
It'll be good for him politically, which is exactly what some Republicans want to avoid. But Republicans are also dealing with another issue, which is their lack of accomplishments during this congressional session. So if they don't accomplish anything to basically win over some of the more independent voters, it could hurt them in upcoming elections. Some Republicans have been pretty vocal about how unhappy they are about all of this. So let's watch Representatives Chip Roy and Andy Biggs basically torch their own party about this issue.
We have nothing, in my opinion, we have nothing to go out there and campaign on, Chris. It's embarrassing.
Right? For the life of me, I do not understand how you can go to the trouble of campaigning, raising money, going to events, talking to people, coming to this town as a member of a party who allegedly stands for something, allegedly stands for reducing spending, allegedly stands for eliminating debt, securing the border, strong military, ending the wokeness that is killing and corrupting our schools and our kids, and then do nothing about it. One thing, I want my Republican colleagues to give me one thing, one, that I can go campaign on and say we did.
And I just want to note that Senate Democrats have been drafting immigration reforms that pretty much give Republicans everything they've been asking for. But what's standing in the way is this obstructionist mentality. I mean, I think Marjorie Greene is a perfect example of someone who just doesn't want to, she thinks it's bad optics to work with Democrats. But you're never gonna get any legislation passed unless you're willing to compromise and work with Democrats. And in the case of immigration reform, Cenk, as we have shared with the audience before, at this point, Republicans wouldn't even need to compromise much.
No, nothing. Look, the reason why there's this so-called compromise is that the Republicans are getting the Trump policies on immigration, and Biden is getting more funding for wars, and he's a warmonger, and he loves it, and he wants money for Israel to kill more Palestinian civilians.
And Ukraine, right.
60 billion to Ukraine. So, but the reality is the Republicans actually, a lot of the Republicans also want that. So the Republicans are getting almost everything they wanted here. So that's why Laura Ingraham's rants are so over the top. She says, this will allow him to pretend that he's doing something. Well, these are Republican proposals. Are you saying the Republican proposals don't do anything? Because that's what he would be adopting. She said that, well, if they do this deal, they would be accepting open borders. But remember, Biden is accepting the Republican plan.
That's right.
So is the Republican plan open borders? That's what Laura Ingraham just told you. So this is absurd. And by the way, guys, we've told you this 100 times and we get proven right every single time. You give Republicans something and they never give you credit for it, right? You can give them 100% of what they want and they'll still slap you across the face. So there's no dealing with these guys who are so fringe, so radical. But I shouldn't say fringe because about 40% of the country thinks, yeah, I don't want the border to be fixed. I don't want anything to be fixed. All I want to do is hate the other side. So, and that's just the political and media version of, I don't care if you give me 100% of what I want. I still hate you and I don't want to help you, even if it, and guys, the other part of it is, that means they never cared about any of these issues. All of these issues are fake, all of them. The voters might care. No,
the issues are real.
Yeah.
Their concern about these issues seems to be fake and inauthentic. Because if they were genuinely concerned about it, if they were genuinely worried about what's happening to border towns, what's happening to these big cities that have experienced an influx of migrants who they don't have shelter for, who they don't have resources for, they would want to do a damn thing about it. But all this is, all of those migrants and all of the Americans who are suffering the consequences of the broken immigration system, they're just pawns for this little political game that these politicians play. That's all this is. That's what's infuriating about it. And the country just continues to deteriorate year after year as a result of these ridiculous political games.
Yeah, so look, here's how you can know for sure that they don't care about the issues, the media and the politicians that are on the right wing side. It was some exceptions, including, interestingly enough, Chip Roy, which I'll get back to in a second. But if they said to me, hey, we're gonna pass an assault weapons ban, but Trump's gonna get credit for it, or Nikki Haley's gonna get credit for it, I take that in a second. Because if you pass an assault weapons ban, you're gonna literally save hundreds of lives. I'm not gonna let those lives go for some political gain. If you said, Trump will get huge credit, but you'll get a ceasefire in Gaza, deal, instantly. Why? Because I don't want the Palestinians to be slaughtered for no reasons. Money in politics, you name it. And you've seen us on the show from time to time go, hey, that's a Republican proposal on the Export-Import Bank, but it's a good proposal, I like it, I would take that deal. Because I don't give a damn who gets the credit. I care that it actually gets done. So when you see Laura Ingraham say, the Republicans should not accept Biden giving them 100% of what they want on what we claim is our #1 issue, that's how you know she's a fraud. She doesn't care about any substance, any policy, anything that affects your life. She just cares about the gamesmanship and we win, you lose, right? And then lastly on Chip Roy, look, this guy is a far right-wing lunatic in my mind on the policies. We just talked about him in the context of another story where he's basically saying Texas shouldn't listen to the federal government or the Supreme Court. I think that's crazy. But I agree with him on what he said in that speech. Not just because he's saying the Republicans didn't get anything done, but because there's an unresolved civil war within the Republican Party. And so both, you might not like either side, and I don't really like either side, but you've got the corporate wing, as you do in the Democratic Party, who's all liars and pretending that they care about these issues, but the only thing they care about is tax cuts for the rich, make sure the IRS doesn't audit the rich, make sure we deregulate the rich and corporations, etc. And then you have a smaller faction of right-wingers like Chip Roy, etc., that are crazier but more honest and more populist and not just serving the corporate wing. So that's why Chip Roy is saying, I thought we were gonna cut the debt, right? I thought we were gonna do all these things. But 90% of his party is still the corporate wing. And no, the corporate wing was never gonna cut the debt because that, like one of the ways you cut the debt is tax the rich. And they are never, ever, ever going to do that.
Stop subsidies for corporations.
Yeah, we give $24 billion in subsidies to oil companies for what reason? They're the most profitable companies in the world. It's insanity.
They might flee the country, Cenk.
Yeah, and defense contractors and the pork and all that stuff. So, but the right-wing populists, as much as we disagree with them on social issues, etc., they're never going to get control over their party. And the problem is their leader is inauthentic. If Trump was an actual populist, they actually could do it because he has now infinite power in the Republican Party.
Very true.
But Trump is also a fraud. He's actually a corporate Republican disguised as a populist. So what's the one giant accomplishment Trump had? Cutting corporate tax rates from 35 to 21. He says if he gets back in office, he's going to cut them to 15.
Yep.
So he's actually part of the Mitch McConnell wing. He's just a poser and a fraud. That's why the Chip Roys of the world are so frustrated. Because yes, I got news for you, brother. Trump and the rest of your party are total liars.
Thanks for watching. If you become a member, you get to watch all this ad-free, except for, of course, this ad. Still, hit the join button below.